Providing a dose of rationality, critical thinking, and skepticism from a conservative atheist perspective, this is the Bitchspot Report podcast. Every week, your host will bring you news of note and commentary on topics of interest in hopes of sparking intelligent discussion on important issues of the day. It's not pretty, it's probably not safe for work, but we tell it like it is and offer no quarter to the credulous, the gullible, or the downright stupid. It's not for the easily offended or for the religiously or liberally minded, but it is about 90 minutes of secular conservative entertainment. So let's get right to the show. Conspiracies are buzzing this week on the Bitchspot Report podcast. We've come up with some of the most absurd stories that I can remember in recent history, and all I can say is, why? We start out with a segment that I'm calling The Crazies Are Out in Force, where we talk about an optical illusion that took place in China and the insane conspiracy theories that have exploded around it. Then we have a mayoral candidate in Toledo, Ohio, who threatens the city with damnation if they don't elect her, and she even speaks in tongues. After that, a televangelist thinks that Satanists are using Planned Parenthood as a front for their unspeakable rituals. A football coach refuses to stop celebrating his religion during games and might lose his job because of it. Ben Carson wants a right-wing fairness doctrine on American campuses, and Maine's governor appoints a creationist as education commissioner. If you're not facepalming by the end of this episode, I don't know what else we can do. Wow, this is going to be painful, isn't it?
I just looked at the picture of the mayor, and that is frightening.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. For those of you, you got to put this story up on the thing, because for those of you who can't see, her slogan is "Want a pot of gold? Vote Opal Cove for mayor, miracle worker." I don't quite recall Christ saying that. John, put down your nets and follow me, and I'll make you a lot of money. I don't recall that in the Bible. I'm trying, but no, I don't.
Yeah. Well, I do want to apologize for not being on for the last couple of weeks. I mean, the first week shit happened on your end and we just couldn't make it. Last week was just living hell for me. I ended up having to pick up some extra work from somebody else who got in a car accident and broke his pelvis.
Oh,
yeah.
Ow,
so he's going to be out for, I think, till like the middle or end of January. So I'm basically screwed until then. But I ended up, I was awake for 39 hours straight, and I worked 30 out of 48 hours over 2 days. And so my life was a living effing hell, and it's not really getting a whole lot better, but I'm going to see what I can do.
And you're on salary, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
This counts as, remember everybody when they tell you to go off hourly wage and go on salary means you get to fix this pretty much for free.
Yeah, well, I'm just doing them a favor. I know in January when this all ends, they'll be nice and go, hey, why don't you take a couple of weeks of paid vacation? Go ahead, on us. So that'll be cool. I won't mind that, but, for a while, it's going to be really rough. So if something happens and we can't do anything, I want everybody to understand that's the way this shit goes. All right, well, anyway, one thing I wanted to bring up that this kind of plays into this whole craziness thing that we've got going this week. I've been doing a lot of videos over on YouTube, and the more I do these videos, the more I realize that there's absolutely no subject that you can possibly do that's so utterly batshit insane that you won't get supporters coming out in favor of it. I mean, I'll do a video on religion or feminism or libertarianism or some other crazy social cause, and I know somebody somewhere is going to come and support it and call me names because I'm against it. So I thought, okay, I got to go way out there. Nobody in their right mind could ever defend flat earthism. But, as I should have guessed, I did a video on this, and I got a whole pile of crazies coming out, telling me the world's really flat, and there's a massive conspiracy to keep everyone ignorant, and NASA isn't real, and the moon landings never happened, and all this other crap. Is there any topic out there we can possibly talk about that nobody supports? Ever?
Well, I don't know. I mean, obviously flat earthers are incorrect. I mean, the earth is truly a dodecahedron.
Oh, sure.
It's a complete blasphemy. I think, unfortunately, that out of I don't know how many people are on the internet right now, but I think it's over 1 billion. I'm certain you will find somebody out there that has a shrine to the one true God, Bugs Bunny, who lives and will one day come to judge both the believer and the non-believer who follow the fallen Daffy Duck. I mean, seriously, I don't think there's anything out there that I could imagine that someone somewhere doesn't believe in.
Yeah, but I mean, I went and I was talking about the Flat Earth Society, which is kind of a crazy little thing. Yeah. It doesn't have a lot of members and all that stuff. It's being run by some guy out of his apartment in Hong Kong right now, I think. And these people are all coming back going, yeah, but they're just posers. They're not serious about the Earth being flat. So there are crazier people out there than the Flat Earth Society.
Yes.
I weep for humanity every single day.
I think they play an important role. I mean, seriously, I think there's probably been a dozen alien invasions been thwarted by the aliens taking a look at these people and realizing it might be contagious. So, they just pack up their flying saucers and take the hell off for someone who's a little more logical.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, these people aren't it.
No.
But that kind of plays into the things that we're going to talk about first. And these are a couple of stories that I came up with that are it's just like face-palmingly stupid. And I mean, it just shows that people are just completely whacked out of their skulls. The first one is about a picture or a video that came up out of China. And this just proves that there's craziness everywhere because there's a story out of China that's getting a lot of buzz from conspiracy theorists. Apparently, this video was shot from a city floating in the clouds, which is a clear optical illusion. We know that as Fata Morgana, but instead of just dealing with the reality of the situation, we have nutballs out there claiming that this is proof that NASA's trying to force a new religion on the world, led by the Antichrist, intending on discrediting all other religions. Newsflash for you guys. First off, NASA has no budget for that. Second off, all other religions have already been soundly discredited, so let's not even go there. Where did they come up with this shit? I mean, what asshole did they pull this stuff out of to come up with this crap?
Which is kind of sad because, just the natural explanation of it is pretty cool and unusual and interesting. I mean, if I was looking up at that, I wouldn't need to go to any paranormal explanation to go, wow, that is a hell of a cool thing I'm looking at, which, is one of the problems you get with a lot of these people is that ultimately, not only are their explanations crazy, but they're fundamentally less interesting than the reality.
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of a rare situation. We've known about Fata Morgana for many centuries. Mm-hmm. It's rare, but it's certainly not unknown. And anybody in the world can just look online and in 5 seconds find out, oh, that's what it is. It's similar kind of to, when you see illusions on the road, where it's basically just things that are reflecting off the sky and back down to the ground. That's what you're seeing. These people were just seeing a reflection of some distant city that they were seeing. And the funny thing is, there's really only one picture that they cut out of a longer video. Obviously, there's only one picture they could find that would actually look sort of realistic, and that's the only thing you can find. And nobody's questioning this.
Yeah, well, it's one of the they do it because it plays into their narrative, and of course that's something you always got to look at on the internet because everything from demonstrations to police shootings, just about anything you see on the internet, you got to consider that they may have just pulled the 5 seconds of a 2-minute video that make their point look really good. And that's something that we always have to worry about. I mean, not just on the internet, of course, news media, this is a common thing.
Yeah, but I mean, see, I always question when I look at this kind of stuff because if they have to go searching through a long video to find the one single frame that makes it look like their batshit crazy garbage makes any sense, how seriously do they actually have to take this stuff? Are they kind of going, hey, this is real because I had to find one frame somewhere that actually made any sense out of 1,000 frames that prove that I'm a complete fucking lunatic.
Yes, but they know that the people who are listening to them will take the one frame and not bother to go look at all the other frames. So for them, it works.
Yeah, but that just means, are the people who are really putting this forward, are they serious, or are they just scamming these other idiots, hoping to get money out of them, or hoping to PO these people, or whatever?
Well, I mean, I think it's a combination of the two. Some of them are just doing it because, hey, wow, I can get my million rank on, YouTube, which, people are increasingly doing crazy stuff to try to get that rank number. Or actually they really believe, and man, I just did all the trouble to you because I found the one frame that proves the conspiracy. And I mean, this stuff has been good. Think about the mental gymnastics some people did in the 70s to come up with why the Kennedy assassination was covered up. So this unfortunately isn't as uncommon as it seems. People love to create patterns where there are no patterns. And this is an example of it. They find the one thing that agrees with their conceptions and then spin a whole narrative around it.
Right. And we still see that today. I mean, the whole flat earth thing that we were talking about before, there are still people out there going, the moon landing never happened. There are still people out there who don't want to believe the lone gunman. There are still people who believe all kinds of really crazy stuff. 9/11 was a government conspiracy. We're going to talk about another one in a couple of minutes. And these people they have to search so hard to put these disparate facts together into something that really still makes no sense. I don't get why they're going to all this trouble when the reality is so much easier to put together.
Yeah, well, and of course, another problem is that they usually start intending to prove the conspiracy they already know about. Like the ones thinking that NASA's trying to summon the Antichrist or open a gateway to Cthulhu, whatever the hell it is they think. They already know NASA's doing this. So they're looking at anything that they can prove their position, which is another problem you get with conspiracy theorists, is that they look for stuff that can prove their position, and anything that doesn't prove their position is a sign the conspiracy is really so good that, they're concealing this. It's a little sad.
Well, it's really sad and it's very pathetic, but, I mean, these are people who we need to make sure these people don't breed, because the crazy ought to stop here.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I think that we will probably have conspiracy theories and stuff like this going on forever. I mean, a lot of humans love to have that kind of stuff pop up. It proves things. It makes you feel important. I mean, there's actually a lot of psychological work been done on conspiracy theorists. And, a great deal of it is honestly the feeling that something everybody else doesn't know.
Speaking of somebody who thinks she knows something that other people don't know.
Oh, God, this.
Yes.
Machines. God has told me that heavy destruction, great destruction will come up upon the Pipapahashataya. Kulia Simahaya, the holy Azia, Kiko Kulia Nasai. Ye my sandala didi, I see Koshantala Lolosi. Ye my sandala didi, I see Koshantaya. Thank you, Jesus. That was a confirmation. If people don't give me what I earned in 2013 back, and I'm not on that seat in November, then you'll see God coming and visiting the city.
All right, well, now I know we complain about the low quality of the GOP clown car, but at least we don't get anyone like this. Toledo, Ohio has this woman running for mayor named Opal Covey, and she's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. She's run for office 4 times before. She's always lost, but she claims that there's a vast conspiracy to steal her votes. Now she's threatening the people of Toledo. If they don't give her back those votes, God is going to rain destruction on the city. But she really wants to bring tourism to Toledo too. So I guess if God nuked the city into nothing, I guess that would probably bring in the tourists, wouldn't it?
Come see the fiery falls and the angel going about killing the firstborn. We have tickets. The angel will give a little speech. I mean, you get these people on occasion. She also speaks in tongues. Lovely. Well, granted, I mean, I'm certain there's been a bunch of mayors that wish they could start speaking in tongues when people ask them hard questions about the budget and why does their secretary keep visiting them in the office for those long lunches. But, that's not generally a good model of governance. I fear that I think that Miscove is not being elected because, well, you're a lunatic.
Well, yeah, of course.
And it was a slow news day today.
It had to be. I mean, let's be really honest. The whole speaking in tongues thing is really ridiculous. Anyway, I mean, we know it's widespread among Pentecostals and other charismatic Christian sects, but it's been studied in detail, and it's been found to have no recognizable speech patterns. It isn't set up like an actual language, has no identifiable organization. It's somebody making stupid sounds with their mouth. And there are a lot of these moron religious fucks out there who fall for it. What the fuck is wrong with these goddamn people?
Yeah, and I mean, the problem is I'm just checking out here. When these people speak in tongues, you got, Acts 2. They all were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance. It's clearly defined as something other people can understand. But if you go on up to 1 Corinthians, 14, if any speak in tongue, let there only be 2 or 3 at most, but if there is no one to interpret, let each of them keep silent in church. There's 2 definitions for speaking in tongues in the Bible. Neither one of them talks about spouting out gibberish to a news camera.
Yeah.
And that's really one of the issues you got with this. I mean, speaking in tongues is just, well, there's actually a good point here. I mean, 1 Corinthians 14:23. If therefore the whole church comes together and all speak in tongues and outsiders or unbelievers enter, will they not say you are out of your minds?
The answer is yes.
Yeah, I mean, and that's in the Bible. That is in, but these people like to do it a lot of times because, again, it makes them feel special.
Yeah.
And also it's
they're special, all right. Yeah, well, we put a link to the video in the show notes, and go watch it because she's out of her freaking banana mind. But one thing, and this is completely off topic, who the hell is naming candidates in Toledo, Ohio? Because if you look, there's like a list of candidates, as you can kind of see in the background, and somebody's named Cardi Finkbeaner. What the fuck is a Cardi Finkbeaner? If your name was Cardi Finkbeaner, wouldn't you change your damn name?
I would be very well practiced at fighting by the time I got out of junior high school, I think. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe those are actually the good names. Everybody else is named Skull Killer, or, I don't know. On the other hand, Skull Killer would be a better name than Finkbeaner.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
All right. Well, anyway, go listen to this lady rant, and, yeah, I'm just going to leave that right there.
And vote for her if you want to save Toledo from the destruction of God. Of course, I know some people who came from, that part of the city and that part of the nation, and they might say that God could only benefit Toledo.
Yeah, well, I think having God nuke Toledo out of existence, please do that. That'll prove God exists, and it'll solve a few problems, like getting rid of Opal Covey, which is a good thing.
God just comes and refrains from voting for her. He votes for Mr. Finkbeaner.
Okay, that's possible too. All right, well, let's go ahead and do the news because, wow. I don't know what else to say about that.
And now the news.
There's so many that want to discredit God. That's what this is all about. The whole thing is discrediting God.
I personally, and I can't prove this, although I've interviewed some people who swear that a few weeks ago, I interviewed a former Satanist who said he performed, I'm trying to think, 146 satanic rituals inside abortion clinics.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Rick, absolutely. I mean, I can't prove it because I wasn't there, but let me just say this. For many years, I had a post-abortion ministry, which we're going to start back up at Lori's house, where we bring in the women to heal from the pain and the torment and the torture of them going through abortion. And we do these memorial services and all of this. So, because I believe that the Holy Spirit can heal you in a split second compared to all the counseling in the world. And I will tell you, especially on Halloween, that many, 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 many satanic rituals abortion rituals are performed.
That's what he said.
It's the truth, because I have had the women sit as close as Jim is to me, as you are to me, crying, screaming from their innermost being, because they were in those satanic rituals where their babies were aborted.
He told me that sacrificing a human life is the greatest thing that they can do for Lucifer.
That's right.
But because it's illegal, murder is illegal, they have to find a way
That's right.
to have a sacrifice of a human. And so because America has legalized abortion, therefore they're doing these human sacrifices in an abortion clinic because it gives them a legal covering.
That's right.
I don't think we have any idea how deeply embedded Luciferian devil worshippers are in our society.
Oh, yes, I believe it too.
The Antichrist spirit is loose.
All right. Pastor Jim Bakker thinks that satanic temples are hidden inside of Planned Parenthood clinics as legal cover for child sacrifice. Yes, because it's illegal to murder born children, they're actually having satanic ceremonies during abortions so they can condemn fetuses to hell. Yeah, right.
Wow.
Yeah, you know.
I mean, there's times I condemn babies to hell. And there are no accidental babies. Oh, I know some people who would disagree with that one.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember Jim Bakker, who used to run the PTL with his
wife,
whatever she was, Tammy. And seriously, if you watch there's a video associated with this, and he's got his new wife on there, and she looks just like the fucking old one. So I'm just kind of going, he's either got a type or something. But why would anybody ever trust Jim Bakker again following his PTL club fraud and his prison time and all the other stuff? He's out there selling this ridiculously overpriced survivalist crap and banging on his Bible. Why don't these people ever learn? I mean, it's not just him though, it's him and, Roberts and all these other people who've been totally discredited, and then they come back out and go, oh, I'm so sorry.
Because that's the game. I mean, and also, well, first of all, obviously they were discredited by the Luciferian conspiracy that rules the entire earth except for the righteous, because that's how things roll. And never mind, there's, very little proof for that in the Bible. Generally, demons in the Bible didn't have a lot of control over anything. The other problem and the other reason is because this has been, I mean, it's new with televangelists, of course, since the 80s, but, you would always get this in small towns. The pastor would be caught playing hide the sausage with the town widow. And then next thing you know, he comes up and the tears roll and, he has sinned and will you forgive him? And by 2 Sundays later, everybody's completely forgotten about it. And he's back up there on the podium. And it's not just him. I mean, unfortunately, let's face it, con artists are really good at playing this game.
Yeah, unfortunately, but I mean, the people that follow these con artists are really effing stupid. And yeah, I understand that's why they're following the con artists, because they're really effing stupid. But this guy has a huge following. All of these people have a huge following. We keep talking about Creflo Dollar and his stupid jet plane and all this other stuff that he wants people to buy for him. And nobody ever looks at him going, dude, you're trying to rip people off. Fuck you. No. We're leaving.
Because, they derive so much of their self-worth. And also there's some cost. I mean, it's really not accurate, but a lot of these people have defined themselves for decades around these figures. They're not about to turn around and say, the last 3 decades of my life I spent following a false prophet, which is what they are. I mean, biblically you would call them false prophets. But they get this, these guys, except for the fact that they're more or less kept under control because we have a secular society, they're very much like a lot of the fanatics you get out of the Middle East. And that's why, for instance, they focus on these cults of personality. You're not going to church, you're going to Jim Bakker's church. And people just hang on every word, religiously.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. My main unfortunate thing is that people vote for these people and their causes, which is a little disturbing when you consider just how un-American these groups are.
Oh, absolutely.
But
yeah, but I mean, especially in this case where they're saying that there's like these satanic temples hidden inside of Planned Parenthood.
Lucifer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but wouldn't you think the women who are in there getting an abortion would come out and go, hey, there were a bunch of people wearing goat's heads and they were having this ritual in the room.
Really good tranquilizers. And also by going to have an abortion or even going into Planned Parenthood, because let us remember, Planned Parenthood does a lot of things other than abortion, but by going into Planned Parenthood and forsaking the holy power of Jesus, they have fallen under their sway and aren't allowed to notice that. And someone somewhere is agreeing with me, guys, I'm being fucking sarcastic. But that's how these people work. I mean, again, you got to remember that like most cults, these organizations really focus on indoctrinating their followers to ignoring everything from outside that contradicts what the head says. Remember, these are the same people that will have, science textbooks in their schools, quote unquote, that say, oh, by the way, this is a science textbook. If observed fact ever contradicts the Holy Bible's right. Observed fact is wrong. So, unfortunately, the kind of people that follow these guys, really aren't going to be too much into this newfangled thing called logic.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, they claim that Margaret Sanger was a racist who hated blacks, and therefore she purposely set up abortion clinics in poor black neighborhoods so they can sacrifice black babies. All right, now, beyond the fact that all of that crap has been completely debunked, crazy people are going to believe this crap anyway, because I guess it's all just confirmation bias because it's stuff that they believe. So anything anybody says that plays to what they already believe, they're going to swallow uncritically because they're all just a bunch of idiots.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, you would think people would say, wait a minute, if any of these claims were actually true, you'd expect X, Y, and Z. We don't see X, Y, and Z. So maybe the claims aren't true. But no, since they can't accept that the claims could be false, they're going to say, well, there must be a giant conspiracy that blah, blah, blah is happening and, alien mind control rays and men in black in there with little flashy thingies making everybody forget on the way out.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things with Sanger, I mean, when they talk about eugenics about Sanger, this is just something to note, is that, she was partially for it, but eugenics in her time period was not a bad word. And it did not mean a lot of the things it means today. One of her arguments, for instance, was that she thought that there was a societal need to limit births to people who couldn't afford children. Well, that's exactly what birth control is used for today, overwhelmingly. Families that say, we want to have an active sexual life, or individuals, we want to have an active social life, sexual life. We are on birth control, so we don't have a child we cannot afford.
Yeah, but you got to remember that the hyper-religious, they want people to breed as much as possible. They're out there going, hey, if God's going to give you a child, and it's not God, guys, it's called biology. But if God's going to give you a child, you better take it. And yeah, we're not going to pay for it. We want society to do that, but you better take it. And,
or we want the individual, or on the right wing, we want you to have as many children as possible, but we don't want any kind of social program. I mean, either side is just ridiculous because, to be honest, and of course, on the right wing, there is a lot of dislike for women's rights. I mean, you see that in the right wing. And probably the most important single factor in the development of women's rights over the 19th and 20th century was the development of this ability to have, voluntary pregnancy. Pregnancy is now something you choose to become. And you don't have to make a choice between, complete abstinence and having children. And, that's another factor. A lot of the opponents of birth control, if you really kind of scrape the surface, they then start talking about, the woman's place is in the home. And there's nothing that keeps a woman from being a professional worker like, whelping out a half dozen kids. Because if you have a half dozen kids, you already have a profession. It's called raising them.
Yeah, we'd like to think so, but that doesn't happen a lot.
Unfortunately, that doesn't happen a lot. And, in truth, it doesn't also happen because even in the past, you might have a half dozen kids. The number that survive is somewhat lower.
Well, not today, because today we've got excellent medical care out there, whether you can afford it or not. And so most of them survive unless they're, something was really seriously wrong with them, or you're religious and decide not to have them, taken to the doctor or something like that. But, today you've got tons and tons and tons of kids, all of whom survive, and nobody's paying for them except, the taxpayers, because we don't let people get away with that.
Right. And that's a factor. And unfortunately, there's a whole lot of toxic memes. Again, to mention the fact, I've known people who have worked for Planned Parenthood. I've known people who have an abortion. Nobody chooses it, Okay, I'll rephrase. There may be someone out there who is the stereotypical person lusting after the chance to perform abortions, because there's people out there that believe floating illusions were a sign that NASA's trying to bring back the Antichrist, like we said. But in truth, it's not common. Most people clearly see this as the last alternative or something to be done for the health of the mother.
There are, and I don't want to go off topic, but there are people out there. There was a recent thing on Twitter or Facebook or something, one of those stupid places, where you had a whole bunch of women out there wearing t-shirts going, "I'm proud of my abortion." Bitch, shut the fuck up. All right.
Well,
if you went out, I can understand saying I had an abortion. It was the only thing that I could do.
Yeah.
And I'm not ashamed that I did it. But to say I'm proud that I did it and I'd do it again, fuck you. Fuck you right up the ass.
Like I said, that is one way to prevent.
Well, yeah, then they wouldn't have to have the abortion.
Yeah, but in all truthfulness, though, being Twitter, I'm always suspicious of what's said on Twitter because I have no idea the story behind those shirts. Twitter, I hate Twitter. I hate Twitter with a passion simply because it takes everything and distills it down to the most uninformative. Twitter, 140 characters. Guy, if you can say it in 140 characters, unless it's something like look out for the rattlesnake, I probably don't need to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. I really couldn't care less. But, I don't know. So you've got the religious crazies who are just and again, this gets right back to the thing that I keep talking about. Do we think Jim Bakker actually believes this crazy crap that he's coming up with? Or do we think that he's just doing this to appeal to the crazies that are following him?
I don't know. Either one's a little worrisome. I'm not too happy about sharing this space with you because unfortunately, to be honest and truthful, we laugh at this, but you got a guy who's a little unstable mentally. This is the kind of stuff that has a guy decide to go grab an AK-47 and go liberate all those poor women by shooting the doctors. We really need to point out that when people do this, there have been a fair number of shootings in the United States, and these people are an important part of creating the atmosphere, that convinces a certain segment that they are heroes when they go blow away a nurse in a Planned Parenthood parking lot. Or, follow them and start publicizing where their kids go to school.
Right.
So this is something that I really honestly, I know they're not going to because they don't want to touch the question on First Amendment, but this is something that I would say if I was the Justice Department, I would start looking at to try to build up a case for the material terrorist support statutes.
Well, I don't think I would go that far because he's not calling for anybody to go out and bomb anything. He's not doing any of that. But people like him and Rick Wiles and Michelle Bachmann, and if you listen to all these really crazy people, they're pushing these really insane ideas. And there's a lot of people out there who are equally as insane, who are buying right into these ideas. And while they're not out there saying, yes, you should go do this, you should go do that, they are creating people who are kind of thinking like, well, hey, maybe God wants me to go blow up an abortion clinic, or maybe God wants me to go do this, that, or the other thing. They're not telling people to do it, but they might be subconsciously encouraging people to do it. And I think that's dangerous.
Or not even subconscious. There are groups, and this is one reason Operation Rescue got such focus by law enforcement. We really didn't intend for them to do that. And then you hear speeches where, the best thing in the world would be if all these people died. So unfortunately, it it is something that does cause a lot of issues, and I don't know. It's something that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I keep talking about it, because we keep having these people who are just out there and they are in every way demonstrably batshit insane. And I don't want to get in their way of their free speech. They have a right to say whatever crazy crap they want to say, but they're potentially causing problems and they don't care.
And of course, they are fully clear on it by the incitement. I mean, they would actually have to be far more direct than this before they even risk picking up an incitement. But yeah, and it is disturbing. But, I don't know.
Well, all right. Well, let's go ahead and move on because we got more craziness to come.
Football coach refuses to lose religion, but will he lose his job? Dun, dun, dun. I love the dun, dun, duns. There's a Bremerton school district of a judge who he'll go out and walk to midfield and pray after the football game had ended. He was inspired to pray after watching the faith-based football team facing the Giants. All right. The problem here is, and they're thinking about suing him. I mean, terminating him. And they opened an investigation in September, and they were afraid that post-game prayers might violate the Constitution. Yes, it does. A school game is an official school function. A school coach is an official of the school district. The problem here is, guys, if there was someone on that team who was an atheist, Muslim, Jew, whatever, fill in the blank, you are violating the First Amendment Establishment Clause. This is not actually science. This is not rocket science. This has been set for a long time. You want a parent to do it on the side? That's fine. The parent is not a school employee. You want to do it after this function, when you are on your own clock as a private citizen? That is perfectly fine. But you cannot do it during a school function. That's it. That is the flat out law. Proven many, many times. Not a
Yeah, well, I mean, he has since been suspended.
Yeah, he's been suspended, and suspended probably as much for not doing what it's never a good idea to tell the school district and the school board to go take a flying leap. And the fact of the matter is that this is something that is going to. He's not going to win this. End of argument.
Yeah, there's no way in hell he's going to win this, but this is kind of one of these things that's coming up a lot in American culture these days. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't give a damn if he prays, but he can't do it as a representative of a government-sponsored school.
Right.
The Bible is very clear when it tells Christians to pray in private, but, these idiots, they want to make a public spectacle of it. They want to show off. That's the whole reason they're doing it. If he wants to go back to his office and pray, go for it. If he wants to close his eyes and say a silent prayer, more power to him. But he's out there to make a show of it in his guise as a representative of a state college. And that's completely unacceptable and illegal. And
right.
But that's what these ass fucks want.
And the problem, of course, is if the school lets this precedent go. I mean, let's say the school lets the precedent go. They do have, it would be very dicey, but if they had a policy of allowing everybody to go up there and pray if they wanted to, they could. The football game would probably never get actually played. And also, do you want someone to show up wearing a goat's head, asking for his chance to pray that Satan will bring his blessings upon this and send curses at the other team? Because seriously, that's another very common, not a controversy in American law. You let one do it, you gotta leave it open to everybody. If a school district allows a school club to meet after school for the Catholics, they gotta let the Protestants and the Satanists and anybody else go in. And, this is the other factor, is that this is why the courts look so unfavorably on this thing, because the school board will say, well, we can't have all those people showing up. We'll never play the football game. Then the court's going to say, why did you select a Christian to be the one to walk in there? Well, he's, the real religion. Establishment clause alert. And, this is just a case, and he's, whether or not he believes it, it's being built up as this huge fighting for Christianity thing. And really what it is that, guys, this is no longer the America where Christianity was the only thing going. Not to mention the fact that in some respects, we like these open shows more than we did in the past. I mean, we should all remember Under God was only added in, 1950s, which is why the pledge sounds so weird when you say it out. But yeah, this is a case. He's going to lose. I hope that he understands this. I am certain that if he says, well, I'm going to pray after the football game, the school board will be happy. I mean, I'm certain the school board's probably not liking the hate mail they're getting for this. But if he pushes it and says, I want to be in a part of the official football proceedings, he's going to lose. The school board is not going to want to eat a lawsuit from a Jewish student, an atheist student, any other student. It just does not, it's just not going to happen. So, and it's another case of feeling that not getting preferential treatment is a sign that we're being oppressed. But, that's unfortunately really a lot of the big
but they don't even have to have a lawsuit. The whole thing is it's not illegal just because somebody complains. It's illegal because it's illegal. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you might have to have a lawsuit for someone to have a cause. I'm not certain. The state board would probably come down on them.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the exact same thing that we got with Kim Davis, where she suddenly thinks that if she's not allowed to run the show, she's being persecuted. And she's still at this shit, by the way. It didn't end when she got out of jail. She is still she's filing lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. The latest one was, I guess, the original court case that ordered her to issue lawsuits, or to issue marriage licenses. She's saying that the judge only ordered her to issue those marriage licenses to the 4 plaintiffs in that case, and she's not doing it for anybody else.
Well, that's going...
And she's already been slapped down on that one. And she's still at it. She's never going to get to the point where she just says, okay, I'm going to do my job. She is fucking Christian bitch ass first and public servant second. Or distant second.
Yeah, we need to put a clip from the Last Crusade. When you do that to a court, the man says, you chose poorly because you're not going to win.
Yeah, but these people don't understand that. These people think that Christian privilege gives them the right to run rampant over everybody else, to do whatever they want to do in the name of their religion. And if anybody doesn't like it, fuck you, because they're being persecuted and discriminated against because they don't get special privileges that other people don't get. These people are idiots. They're just out and out idiots.
Yeah. And they are idiots who are going to get slapped down. The court is not impressed by your, if you wish to be a legal martyr, the court will indeed grant you the right to be a legal martyr.
Well, I hope the court is going to do that.
We don't have lions anymore, but we do have contempt.
Yeah, I hope that the court is going to do that. We're seeing an awful lot of people even look at the Supreme Court. You've got idiots in the Supreme Court who seem to think that religion is a get out of reality free card.
Right. And
that is a problem.
And, and when we speak of why this
it shouldn't be, but it is.
Yeah, it is. And when we speak of this, just whether or not this impacts people, as you notice that just a couple of days ago, there was a new news story about a judge who used his religious leanings to order a lesbian couple to give up a foster child. We might talk about this later, but I mean, understand this: people going from their religious viewpoints, holding that other people have less rights than they do, hurts people. It is not a victimless crime.
Right. Well, I mean, that's why, and I mean, again, mentioning another story, but Ted Cruz recently said that atheists are not qualified to hold the presidency. because of all this crap, I would really argue that only atheists have any right to hold the presidency, because they're the only ones who are not going to be taking these crazy batshit insane beliefs and holding them over other people.
Yeah, well, I would say secularists, because obviously we've had, elected officials who are Christian and yet have done a very good job during their time. I mean, Robert, the Kennedys, Eisenhower, Richard Nixon, Quaker, obviously didn't really get the pacifist part given his activities. But fundamentally, what these people are really saying is that we want a religious, fanatic almost in office, that only those who consider their religion the most important part of their being can be in office. And no. You want to see how that goes? Fly to the Middle East. Look at all those massively successful societies.
Yeah, but that's exactly what these people want. These people want a Christian caliphate in the U.S. These people want Christians in charge, and they want anybody who's not a Christian to either leave, and they've actually argued that. They said, hey, if you're not a Christian, get the fuck out of our country. Or they want, Christians to have all the power and all the control, and anybody else. God, who was it that we talked about? I think it was Theodore Schubat, who basically said, I'm willing to allow atheists in the United States so long as they bow down to Christianity. Well, fuck you, dude.
Yeah, and that is true. I don't know. I personally would prefer somebody in office who just looks at the facts as they are, which means I'm kind of out of luck this election.
Oh yeah, because it's not just this election, it's every election, because we don't want those people in office. We don't want people, and I know we're going way the fuck off topic, but whatever. But we do not want people in this country who are actually there to serve the public. We want people in office who are there to serve an ideology. And that is seriously problematic.
Right.
All right, well, speaking of somebody who wants people to serve an ideology.
Ben Carson.
Yeah, that was a segue. Ben Carson, that lunatic from the GOP clown car, wants to start cutting funding to state universities that have what he describes as an extreme political bias. But while you can't abrogate individual freedom of speech, I do think he's kind of right that political ideologues shouldn't be collecting a taxpayer-funded paycheck and pushing only a specific political ideology either. So he has somewhat of a point. But I'm sure he's going to push it way the fuck out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, I mean, one of the problems is, of course, a lot of these people, let's face it, what he's really saying is that he doesn't like people who disagree with him. Now, you can, or to use the article, would you deny federal funds to Notre Dame if the university showed a political bias against abortion if you were left wing? Well, the Department of Education doesn't. But equally, I'm certain Ben Carson would feel that supporting abortion is a sign that you have a terrible left wing bias and must be, have your funding cut. In truth, there are tools to handle this, because if a professor allows a bias to impact his or her grading, and, there's been cases of this. You find a professor that if you don't say the right thing in class, you get an F. You can protest to the dean and further on up. And generally the procedure works. Campuses, we do have a situation right now where some campuses are having, political debates, but it's nothing unusual. I mean, it's been going on since before the 1960s. And there was a case just recently where there was a photographer that got yelled at I forget the name of the campus, but anyway, a professor was heard to be channeling Bull Connor and saying, we need some muscle. And right now her tenure track's being reconsidered, which is pretty much you come into the faculty evaluation office and you notice everybody is now wearing red robes and their faces aren't visible except for the chair that's holding a twisted dagger in his hand. That's really, to most professors, what it means when they tell you we're reconsidering your tenure track. But it's more or less, to my mind, an example of, well, first of all, Ben Carson is supposedly small government.
No, he's not. Nobody in the GOP is small government.
He tells us he's small government. And here he is basically wanting to have, the federal government have the ability to go in and for political reasons determine what the funding of a college should be. So, Ben Carson is small government when it suits him. When it doesn't suit him, he's big as government as he's as big government person as the furthest left-wing Democrat. But yeah, I mean, this is another case of, well, for one thing, as the article says, is he's basically wanting a college version of the fairness doctrine, which conservatives really hate.
Well, these people aren't conservatives either, so that's there. But, I mean, to some degree, I kind of agree with him because we know for a fact that virtually all colleges in this country, virtually all public colleges in this country, they are hyper left-wing. They just are. To the point where a lot of colleges, they're forcing all boys attending to sit through what amounts to feminist indoctrination sessions. If you go to that school, you have to sit through these classes, whether you like it or not, that's just pushing far left-wing feminist doctrine. That's bullshit. It's complete and total bullshit. There's a lot of these places where if you are a conservative professor on campus, they'll get rid of you if you don't espouse leftist positions. It has nothing to do with your teaching. It has to do with that is what these people really want. So as far as that is concerned, absolutely positively, because these are taxpayer funded institutions. It's not like the fairness doctrine where these are private companies where, television or radio or newspaper or whatever, these are private companies where they can have whatever lean they want to have. And if somebody else wants to go out there and start a newspaper or a radio station or a television station with a different lean, they're more than welcome to. These are fucking taxpayer funded institutions, and we cannot have either the liberals or the conservatives on campus saying, fuck you, we're going to force these people to learn what we want them to learn. Because it's not learning, it's indoctrination. And that needs to change in this country.
Yeah, well, one of the things, and of course a lot of this is, I hate to tell people this, but a lot of the mandatory classes, I think those have more to do with the fact that professors love mandatory classes because it gives them a justification for a bigger budget. That is one of the things that you have going on a lot. Now, one of the problems, of course, is, and this gets kind of back on a different route to what we were talking about with the, coach who likes to, preach. And the problem is that if you feel you are in a classroom with a professor that has a strong left, right, whatever wing bias you care to mention, strong opinions. The problem is that you have a question of, will I get a good grade in this course if I don't espouse the benefits? And, this is a problem. I have had professors who were open about their political points of view, but never allowed it to impact their grading process. And of course, you're going to want a professor who is you want a professor that has some political viewpoint, because obviously, other than that, whatever his viewpoint, I don't want to be sitting there talking to a boring robot. But the problem is that in too many cases, left, right wing, you have a culture that judges whether or not a student should get a good grade based on that.
Yeah, well, I have no problem with somebody having a political viewpoint, but let's be really honest. If you're walking into a class and it doesn't really matter what kind of class it is, history, sociology, whatever, math, although I can't really imagine a political viewpoint having a lot to do with math, but it's one thing for the professor to have a bias, have a viewpoint, whatever, and teach from whatever position they want to have. But when they're sitting down and saying, I'm going to teach history, but I'm only going to teach it from the most extreme left viewpoint I can possibly teach it, and anybody who is a conservative, I'm going to rip down in my class and I'm going to call them a bunch of assholes, or from an extreme right, where you're just kind of going, if it's not Jesus, it's nothing. That should never be allowed. When the political viewpoints or the religious viewpoints or the social viewpoints of the professor interferes with actually teaching the subject matter, because they're here to teach subject matter, not to indoctrinate the students into a particular viewpoint. When that interferes, you need to do something, and a lot of these schools don't.
And, that is where the responsibility of the administration comes into view. Because, yes, I know what people are going to shout right now. But, but Charles, you can't do anything about him if he has tenure. That's not actually true. Tenure doesn't give you the right to teach classes. Tenure just means they can't fire your ass without a very good reason.
And that's why I think we ought to get rid of tenures.
Well,
to be really honest.
I disagree, because I've known professors who had unpopular viewpoints who were probably saved due to tenure. And of course, and again, there are ways to get rid of people with tenure. It's a little difficult, but it's generally difficult because by the time this person has tenure, he's been on campus for 5 to 10 years, depends on how long tenure track is, and it depends on, so even it is a situation where I'm not upset at tenure. I mean, there's abuses of it, but then again, there's abuses of everything. But regardless of that, there are ways to discipline professors. There are ways to, modify how they teach or take them out of certain classes. We do have problems with professors in some cases, on both sides, allowing their politics to interfere with their grading, which is a problem. I mean, now on the other hand, don't come to me and whine about how that evil conservative professor or that evil liberal professor is oppressing your religion, is oppressing your beliefs, is oppressing you in the classroom because he gave you an F for a term paper that was 10 pages long and only had notations from Wikipedia on it. That's another problem we got. A lot of people, there's been many cases where you ask someone, they complain about the professor's bias, and you say, yeah, I guess his bias is against the right stench of bullshit, because that's what I'm getting from this paper.
Yeah.
There is that too. So, but yeah, I mean, colleges need to realize that you will always have, obviously, prejudice in one direction or another. Yeah, we can't avoid it. We're humans, but they should be aware of it and try to avoid it, and definitely not get to a point where a student coming on campus feels that his political views are being attacked within certain guidelines. I mean, obviously, if a person comes on campus wearing a Heil Hitler t-shirt, he's going to have a problem. He should.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be from the teachers. It shouldn't be from the administration. You might have it from students who are just going to say that's unacceptable. But, you can't really have this, my point is this. There was a point in time that American college campuses were the last bastion of free speech, where it was the place where you could go and hear about anything because everyone had a right to speak their mind about any damn subject they wanted. That's not the case today. We've got speech codes. We've got free speech boxes where you have to stand in and sign up. You're not allowed to speak your mind on these campuses because a lot of people do not want to hear anything that falls outside of their pre-existing political, social, and religious ideology.
Right, which is unfortunate because, let's be honest, free speech does not immunize you from people calling you on your bullshit. In fact, sometimes that's the easiest way to get called on your bullshit. And yeah, I mean, free speech was a big deal in the 60s. And ever since then, both at colleges and, in lower, secondary schools, the high schools, there's been a process of rolling those protections back and rolling both the culture. And yeah, it is a problem because, there was just a couple of cases about heckler's veto. Sixth Circuit ruled against heckler's veto. And that is in some respects what you're seeing on campuses, giving your opponents a heckler's veto of your free speech, which is a bad thing. I mean, granted, this does not prevent you. And of course, we're not talking about certain types of violent speech, incitement speech. If I sit there screaming racial slurs at a person, no, the courts have long since agreed that that they have a right and a duty to censor that. But other forms of speech, you can say it. People can look at you and say you're a complete moron. That's how it works.
Not on modern campuses. You can't disagree.
Yeah, well, that is a problem. And, you know, and I don't know, I know I never had that problem at CSUF. I'm not certain how it is at other campuses. On the other hand, I have to admit that the schools I went, the CSU system, most of the students there were generally moving a little faster to get their, to get out, get a job. You know, they had other things in mind. So I'm thinking that the culture is probably a bit different in the CSU system than it is in other areas. But, you know, Berkeley, or Berserkly as some people call it, is obviously always a leader on these. And, you know, it is unfortunate. And I think people should remember that when you start constraining speech, back in the 60s, the speech that was being constrained was speech against the Vietnam War, speech for racial equality. You know, speech codes are political neutral. They answer to whoever is in power at the time. And that is why they are so dangerous. But,
well, it's dangerous because everybody in power right now tends to be the left.
Well, but it'll be dangerous if everybody in the power ever becomes the right.
Well, I agree with you. I completely agree with you. But the situation as it stands right now, and is unlikely to change anytime soon, is that it's pretty much the political left that's in power. And of course, they don't want to change anything because they've got the power. And, you know, they'll be screaming bloody murder as soon as the situation changes, which is why, as much as I think Carson is a dumbass, I have to kind of agree that we need to start looking at this stuff and start saying, hey, we cannot, as a people, as a culture, say, hey, we're just going to take every single person who goes to every public college in America and start cranking out good little liberals. We can't be doing that. We can't, well, it's one thing if they choose it for themselves. It's entirely another if we are using our taxpayer-funded institutions to push that kind of an ideology. That's just death. It is.
Yeah, and you know, if you want to look at some of the things about these speech codes, you know, there's been a lot of litigation on this subject of the question of free speech. You know, one of the big issues is good news is that the overall trend. There's an organization called FIRE that does a Foundation for Individual Rights in Education. The overall trends has been speech codes have been becoming looser and becoming less common on a lot of campuses. They open the campus up to a lot of litigation. So more and more campuses, rather than coming out with general speech codes, have come out with, you know, more tightly focused speech codes, things that are widely regarded to be acceptable, like anti-hate speech, where hate speech is somewhat more closely defined than it has been. You know, again, screaming, racist obscenities is not protected speech. But one of the problems when you have a culture, you know, I'm to the left. I am to the political left of a lot of people. And one of the problems that you have is that if you have an environment where you only hear political left discussions, you're going to be in a lousy position to defend it if you come up against somebody who's well informed and is in the right wing.
Well, that's why a lot of people on the left can't.
Right.
They have no concept. The only thing they can do is sit there and scream and call people misogynist and call people names because they can't actually address any of the concerns.
Well, right, which is unfortunate because in a lot of times they're dealing with people who you should be able to dismantle. I mean, you know, you should be able to dismantle a lot of these people. I remember a debate between some student activists and a gentleman named William F. Buckley, and it was sad. You know, it was very much the situation where you were just hoping, come on, referee, ring the bell. The other guy's, you know, he's dead on his feet. This isn't a fight anymore. But yeah, I mean, if you want to be able to defend your point, you've got to hear a bunch of different viewpoints. Doesn't mean you have to agree with them. You can think they're bloody fucking stupid. I know a great deal about the right-wing religious movement in America. I think it's dumb, but you have to be able to interact with them and understand where they're coming from, or you're just going to come out as someone yelling out sound bites. So yeah, and the other problem, of course, is, and this is one problem I have with like the helicopter moms, the safe spaces, college. After you go through college, you got to enter the real world. And, you know, in the past that would have been high school, but now most people are going to college. But the real world involves you working with people that you don't like. Sometimes you hate people. Sometimes you just don't like them. Sometimes you don't feel any way, but you got to work with them because your employer is not going to arrange his job around you. Wait until you're rich. Then you can do that. But I mean, as for instance, not exactly a tangent, but Mythbusters is just going off the air. It's their last season, I think, this year.
Yeah.
And the two actors, Janie Hyman and, what was the other fellow's name?
Adam Savage.
A lot of people were very shocked and surprised, especially younger, to find out that they really don't associate with each other very much offset when they're not on the clock, when they're not working. They like each other, they get along, they're good workers, but they're not close friends. And what struck me is a lot of people seem to be surprised at the idea that you would work with somebody and have a good working relationship with that you're not like a close friend and joined at the hip to. Well, no, actually, that's more the rule than anything else in the real world. And part of the problem I have with a lot of things, and this is on both sides. This is on, your right wing, left wing, whatever. If you just associate with people who agree with you, it puts you in a very terrible position to defend your point of view and get along in society where you're going to have to agree to disagree because, hey, look, we got to get this project in by next week. It is our ass on the line if the project doesn't get finished by next week.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there is nobody at work that I would consider a friend. Nobody that I would just say, hey, let's go hang out on our day off. Just doesn't happen.
But
I work great with them all.
Yeah.
But no, they're not my friends. They are my coworkers. I am their boss or they're my boss or whatever, but they're not my friends. And I disagree with them vehemently on a lot of subjects, but I just don't talk about those subjects at work.
My grandfather once had a saying, this was a very common saying, don't talk religion or politics at work. And that's a very good thing. And, that's something that people really need to know coming out of, you don't want to talk religion or politics to people you have to work to. I mean, now obviously there's sometimes you can't go with that. Like if you, for instance, you're, same sex and a guy has a sign saying all gays are going to go to hell in your workplace. Well,
they're not going to last long. Sorry.
They're not going to last long. Yeah. But that's something but if they disagree with you, if they're conservative, a lot of people have to work with people that are conservative or liberal, or religious. I mean, I'm certain there's people you have at work who are very religious. You are, to put it mildly, not. And you just have to deal with this. And that is really my real concern with a lot of speech codes and things like that, is it doesn't prepare people for the world in which they've got to deal with, a very pluralistic society.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, a lot of these people, they get out in the real world and these people shit. I mean, these are the same people. This is why a lot of these people move back in with their parents, because they're totally unprepared to actually deal with the real world. To go out there and say, hey, I have to go out there and I have to have a job and I have to pay my expenses and I have to do all this stuff. These people have not been prepared. These people think that it's going to just be, hanging out with their friends and never hearing anything they disagree with and never having to do anything that they don't like. And they're wrong.
Yeah. And it is an unfortunate thing. I mean, it really is. So, open it up. I disagree with Carson on a lot of things, but, seriously, college is going to be where you're going to be confronted with views that are not your own. Some of them you like, some of them you don't like. And the professor should really stick to, are you completing the class? Are you doing the work in the class? Again, obviously, there are some things, I don't care what your religious belief is. If you start out your biology class with, and God created the heavens and the earth in 7 days, you're going to have a problem.
Oh, yeah.
But equally, you're going to have a problem if you say that Zorblek, the alien, seeded Earth with his nanomachines, 4 billion years ago.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've seen that kind of crap in classes.
Oh, yeah.
My wife, when she was in college many, many, many years ago, she was in an anthropology class with a hyper-religious fucknut who spent all of her time arguing with the teacher that everything she was teaching was not in the Bible. And the teacher finally just said, look, you're either going to learn and do what you have to do for this class, or you are welcome to leave. You have no other choice. And she finally just said, fuck it, and left. But that's the kind of reality that we actually need. You're not there to have your views validated. You're there to learn about reality. People need to be able to separate reality from ideology, and a lot of people just can't.
Right.
All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and finish up the last story then?
Okay. Maine's governor appoints a creationist as education commencement. Yeah, this is just, now we should notice that Paul LePage is having a lot of problems in Maine. I mean, a lot of problems. He was basically voted in, for reasons I don't want to get involved here, but it was a complete clusterfuck. And right now everybody hates him. So, there is a viewpoint that he is, probably not going to be around too long. Now, here's the thing. He wants to appoint an education commissioner who wants to believe that creationism should be taught in public school. When asked about creationism, LePage backed up his belief by saying, I would say intelligence, the more education you have, the more knowledge you have, the better person you are, and I believe yes and yes. The grammar is not strong in this one. You know, I am going to say that first. As Yoda says, the grammar is not strong in this one. He also said, Beardsley, who at least put together a decent sentence, I would teach creationism, on the question of global warming, says, I believe we should be focusing on our economy rather than chasing after issues that haven't been proven in science, which was not answering the question. But the head we have now of Maine rejects both evolution and climate change. This is not good.
Yeah, but you gotta remember, this guy is he's a nutball anyway.
Oh, yeah.
LePage, now we talked about, he's a supporter of the sovereign citizen movement, which we've talked about in the past. He agrees with them that the Maine Senate president and Speaker of the House is guilty of high treason. This guy is not rational to begin with on pretty much anything.
Yeah, and he's, the problem, of course, is that when you have a guy in commission, and he's not going to get it taught in schools right now, simply because, there's a little thing called the court system, the court system will smack down any attempt, but as an example of the complete waste of time these people put in, he is, and also Governor LePage they're considering impeachment because, 2015 an investigation was launched. He evidently used his office, or is claimed to have used his office, to force a nonprofit group to reverse their hiring of the Democratic Speaker of the Maine House. Speaking of the guy he says is, treason. This fellow, this is just another example of the problem with the hyper-religious in America and the Tea Party in America. These views are so completely discredited, it's not even funny. Seriously, going back to the mayor running for Toledo, Ohio, was probably more grounded in reality than this. And what's going to happen is whatever this guy does, is he is going to cost the state a lot of money. He is going to harm the students in as much as it is allowed to go through. But honestly, if they try to really put together any kind of creationist course plan, I expect it will never make it to the classroom, because they're going to get a restraining order before it even hits the classroom.
Yeah, this has already been decided. There's no way around it. There's nothing they can do. It's bullshit from step one.
Yeah, I mean, and and also some of this is quite possibly just, political posturing. LePage is in a lot of trouble, but, he signed a bill to bring Maine in alignment with the Common Core standards. But by 2013, he was opposing the standards. And, honestly, by 2013, that was when he was really getting, in more trouble. But I don't know. This is one of those things that just really annoys me, because this should not be an issue in 2015.
No, it shouldn't. But of course, this isn't the first time any of this has happened. No. There's plenty of places where openly anti-science candidates are put into school boards and elected to office in the board because people don't want their kids to be properly educated. They just want them to be indoctrinated. The same thing happened in New Jersey in 2010, and we talked about this before, in Texas in 2012, where they're putting creationists on the boards of education to try to force creationism and other religious bullshit into the school curriculum. And this is exactly why we shouldn't elect religious wingnuts to high office. Anybody who can't separate their personal religious views from their jobs, they do not deserve those jobs, period.
Well, the problem, of course, is, and this gets back into the situation where local offices are really important. Local offices are something that you really need to focus on, because this is where a lot of stuff gets changed. You put a bunch of creationists onto a local school board, you're going to be cleaning that mess up for a long, long time. And this is an issue that people need to consider. This is why it's so important to avoid these people getting into positions of power to the first place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I really wish what they would do, and this is going to take a lot that will never happen, of course, but I really wish the courts would, or Congress would pass a law that says, for all school boards, if the school board members put something illegal into the system or into the education, then they are legally and criminally liable, and they're going to jail. So, things like this that are completely already decided, there is no question whatsoever that you cannot put creationism, intelligent design, or anything of the like into any school, any public school classroom in the country, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. The next group of religious asshats who says, well, let's go ahead and do it, those people need to go to jail. And if enough of those groups do that, and if enough of those people end up with their butt behind bars, you're going to stop having these groups doing this, because they're going to know that's where they're going. But until we're willing to do that, and of course we'll never do that because Congress is too busy trying to suck religious dick, trying to get reelected, we are going to have these problems. It's the same way with the South, and we keep talking about the South, but, if we had people, if we had like the KKK putting people on, putting KKK members on school boards so that they could pass discriminatory, things in schools, people would shit their pants. That's the same thing that's happening with Christianity.
Yep. And unfortunately, it's a situation, like I said, where you're getting into some severe issue regarding, the state of American education. And this is really what bothers me, because you get people it's easy to get a kid believing, and this is why they're so focused on this, because they know if you get the kids, you get the adults. When you try to get this creationism BS going on, and it does need to be stopped. I don't know. I just, when I look at this, it just kind of depresses me a little bit.
Oh, it depresses me a lot.
So, hopefully we'll see. And, this is unfortunately the reason, I really am upset about our current election. Cause, I can't think of a single Republican candidate who is pro-evolution. I don't know. Is there anyone? I
doubt it.
Yeah, the GOP clown car isn't going to do that. And again,
But the problem is, I don't think that there's anybody on the left who's pro-evolution either, at least not vocally so. Well, they just don't want to talk about it.
Well, no, they don't.
You got Hillary bitch out there, she's still throwing around God bullshit. Nobody running for any party whatsoever is out there saying, I'm pro-science, I'm pro-reality, I'm anti-stupidity. None of them are, because they can't get elected that way.
Yeah. And, that is, that is unfortunately the problem, because they know that they don't want to turn a lot of people against them. The Democrats not talking about it is probably a logical thing. They're actually being a bit smarter than the Republicans and not, appealing to just a tiny base.
Yeah, but the fact is, we don't know what they actually support. Not talking about it doesn't mean they're not a bunch of religious wingnut fucktards. They probably are. I would say most of them probably are.
I would say that in terms of what has happened under the Democrats, you're not going to have them trying to outlaw the teaching of evolution. I mean, we really have not seen that. That's been a Republican thing. But the problem is that one of the issues is that when you get people like this, see, I don't know, obviously you can't say for certain that they're not going to do that, but given the past history, but I do know that just about every Republican candidate has made, creationism and the whole God thing a very big center part of their, of their current campaign. And, situation that we have is one where that makes it difficult to vote for the Republicans. And again, this gets into what I've talked about before, is that one of the problems with having such an extreme viewpoint on either side of the political spectrum is it makes it very hard for you to say, hey, I'm going to pick my vote up and go somewhere else. Because it's a choice between people you may not like and the giggling lunatic in the corner. You're not going to vote for the giggling lunatic.
I think there's giggling lunatics on both sides, though.
Well, in this case, I'd say the Republicans with their creationism thing is, if you're concerned about that, they're obviously the worst option right now. And it's because they're appealing to this far right lunacy that they let into the party and now it's taken the party over. And like Frankenstein's monster is rampaging around party headquarters, throwing people down wells.
Yeah, but that's not the problem. You do have the religious crazy wingnuts on that side, and you don't want them in office. On the other side, you got the people who are going to run us financially into the ground, who think that we have an unlimited checkbook. So you're basically, we're fucked if we do or we're fucked if we don't. Neither party actually has a decent plan for America. Both of them are going to fuck us over one way or the other.
Well, on the other hand, the good news is that at least right now the deficit has fallen to its lowest. So that's good news.
That's why they just raised the debt ceiling. Imagine that. Yeah,
well, the debt ceiling, is something that was put in, but I'm happy that the deficit's fallen lowest. But yeah, I mean, one of the problems is that, I'm waiting for a candidate to come out and say, look, I'm not going to tell you what I think about creationism. I'm not going to tell you what my religious viewpoint is. Why? Because it's my private business. It's not your business. I'm going to sit here and tell you what my economic policies will be. I'm going to tell you what my foreign policies will be. And I'm not going to say things like, I'm going to have, a faith-based, no, I'm going to sit down and during the debate do something that I did not see, which is give you like a bullet pointed, this is what I'm going to do in this situation, presuming the conditions remain the same. He can't, no candidate can tell you exactly what he's going to do because conditions change, but I have yet to see any candidates come out and give a nice, little presentation as here will be the thrust of my, goals. And, maybe use examples, like for instance, well, how would you handle Iran in the Middle East? Presuming it's the same when you get into office. We don't hear that. We hear things about creationism. We hear, these little bullet points. And we hear very little that, if the people of either party were having a job interview, they wouldn't get the job. Which,
I wouldn't hire any of them.
Well, they don't tell you anything. Okay, I'm reading yes, your mother loved you very much. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, well, they can't tell you anything because if they tell you something, then nobody will vote for them.
Yeah, I think everybody remembers read my lips, no new taxes.
Yeah, sure. Tell us another one.
Yeah. Personally, it'd be better to say, look, I can't say that, but,
I don't know. It's just frustrating.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have anything else for the week?
I don't really think so. We're doing a little short this week, but we've got a ton of work to do.
Yes.
Yes. Yesterday I managed to finally, for like the last week, because I've been sick as a dog and everything that's been happening, I've been averaging like 2,000 words a day. Yesterday I finally got up to 5,000 words a day again, so I'm happy. I am so happy because now I'm actually getting back a little bit of extra money.
Yeah.
But, yes, the joys of being a freelance writer. Hey, I can take all day playing World of Warcraft. Just one problem. I don't get paid for that.
Yep.
Maybe that's what I should do. I should vote for the guy that promises to make World of Warcraft a paying job.
Good luck on that.
Yeah, well, there are people that did, for some reason beyond sanity, put their World of Warcraft experience down on a resume. If I was trying to get hired by some guy, I really wouldn't want to bring up the fact I'm addicted to a game that is known for being a tremendous time sink.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that might not be good, Wait a minute, it says here you played World of Warcraft 12 hours a day, but you were working, oh, okay. You weren't working at that other company. Maybe that's why they failed.
Yes.
So no, I'm done.
All right. Well, now, that was painful, wasn't it? Once again, my faith in humanity has hit an all-time low, and it makes me really wish an asteroid would come along and blast this planet apart to keep humanity's stupidity from infecting the rest of the universe.
But I keep my stuff here.
Yeah.
Oh, also, we should find out when the Toledo mayoral elections will occur to determine whether or not Toledo's going to be destroyed by the wrath of God.
That would be interesting to find out, yes.
That will be interesting. And I will swear right here and right now, if Toledo is obliterated by a giant meteor, I will say I was wrong.
Yes.
So,
unfortunately, that doesn't look likely, so the absurdity will continue unabated, and that means we will too.
You really hate Toledo.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I know. We'll be back next week with more of the same, so please stay tuned. Remember to spread the word about the podcast, like, share, and subscribe to our feeds, and head over to iTunes and Stitcher Radio to give us a good rating. So until we come back with our next load of insanity, please remember that we do this so you don't have to, or so that you can identify people who are too nuts to be allowed free reign.
Or so you can point and laugh. I mean,
that's true too.
We don't demand you do anything. I mean,
yes. Maybe we ought to do something about it all. If you got an idea, let us know. So until next time, adios.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Bitchspot Report podcast. We invite listeners to interact with the show by commenting on our website at report.jdragononline.com. We can also be found on most social media sites, including Facebook, Google+, Tumblr, and Twitter. You can also listen on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Player FM, as well as on the aforementioned website. New episodes post every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific. Those interested in being on the air, please visit our website. All instructions are there. We appreciate our listeners and supporters. We couldn't do this without you.